All right, so get ready because today we are going deep, deep into a mystery that never seems to go away.
The Black Dahlia.
The Black Dahlia murder, that's right.
A classic.
You sent over this article about it, and even just skimming through it, I was hooked.
It really is one of those cases that just won't go away. It just seems to capture the imagination.
Absolutely. I mean, decades later, and people are still trying to figure it out. But I think before we get too far into the theories and the suspects, it's important to remember that this wasn't just some, puzzle to be solved.
Right.
This was Elizabeth Short's life.
A real person, and she gets lost.
Yeah.
In the sensationalism.
Absolutely.
And the article does a good job. Mm-hmm. Really kind of setting the stage, giving us a picture of, her life before Hollywood. I mean, she had a tough upbringing.
It sounds like it.
Yeah. Her father abandoned the family when she was young.
Oh, wow.
Turns out he'd actually faked his death. Can you imagine the impact that must have had?
That's brutal.
Yeah. Talk about a betrayal.
So she heads to California hoping for a fresh start.
Right. The land of opportunities.
Dreams of, the silver screen.
Mm-hmm.
But things don't exactly work out for her, do they?
Not at all. She struggles to find consistent acting work, takes on odd jobs, moves from place to place, and it really paints this image of somebody who's trying to make a life for herself.
Yeah.
But keeps running into setbacks.
It's almost like a Hollywood cautionary tale, except this one takes a really dark turn.
Horrific turn, yeah.
And that brings us to the discovery of her body.
Yeah.
January 15th, 1947.
In Leimert Park.
And a woman walking with her child.
Can you imagine?
Just comes across this scene.
That would be seared into your memory.
I can't even imagine.
Forever.
So it's not just that she's dead, it's the condition that she's found in.
Oh, it's gruesome. Her body was severed.
The waist.
At the waist, the two halves were posed a distance apart.
Oh my God.
She'd suffered this really horrific facial mutilation.
Yeah.
It's called a Glasgow smile.
I have to admit, I'm not familiar with that term.
Oh, essentially these deep cuts that extend from the corners of the mouth up towards the ears.
Oh gosh.
Creating this forced grin. It's grotesque.
It's awful. And the article goes on to describe her eyes were gouged out. She was drained of blood. I mean, it's just unimaginable.
The level of violence, even for seasoned investigators, was just shocking.
Yeah.
And the article, I think, really highlights the precision of the cuts.
Yes.
One of the medical examiners was quoted as saying they were clean, almost surgical.
Right, and the lack of blood at the scene suggested that that this all took place somewhere else.
Right, that she was moved.
So we're talking about someone with some knowledge.
Potential medical knowledge.
Yeah.
Or at least a very steady hand.
Yeah, it's chilling.
It really throws a whole other level of complexity into this.
Absolutely. So speaking of the investigation, I mean, where do you even begin with a case like this?
This gruesome and this high profile.
Yeah.
I mean, the LAPD had their work cut out for them.
They had a lot to deal with.
Just a ton of tips and potential leads. But the article mentions that one of the things that really hampered the early investigation was the media frenzy.
Oh, absolutely.
That just surrounded the whole thing.
I mean, the press went crazy with this one.
Wild.
And that's where we get the nickname, right?
That's where the Black Dahlia comes from.
Yeah.
The article points out the connection to that film noir, The Blue Dahlia.
Right.
Which had come out just a year before.
Before her murder.
Before Elizabeth's murder.
And the nickname, I mean, as catchy as it was, it really took hold, I mean, everywhere.
It did.
In the press, public imagination, I mean...
It stuck.
It stuck.
And the article makes the case that all the media attention might have actually hurt the investigation.
Oh, so?
Because they created this mythical persona around Elizabeth Short. Mm-hmm. And the real woman, the victim, just got lost in the narrative.
Right. And on top of that, you have the killer sending these taunting letters.
Oh, yeah.
To the police, to the press.
Playing a game.
Yeah.
He was reveling in the attention.
It's like he wanted to be part of the story.
Sending some of her belongings back, her birth certificate.
Gosh, and they point out in the article, they highlight that tactic was really rare back then.
Very rare.
This using the personal items, to taunt the police.
It speaks to, a calculated, deliberate effort to throw them off the scent.
Just to mess with them.
Yeah.
To make it harder to solve this case.
100%.
It's crazy. Like, he was in control.
Exactly. That need for attention. That desire to control the narrative. I mean, That's
creepy.
That's criminal psychology 101 right there. It really does say a lot about the killer.
And then, of course, you have all these false confessions.
Oh, the false confession.
The LAPD had to deal with.
I mean, they were inundated.
Why do people do that?
It's a good question. Confess to something they didn't do?
Right.
Well, I mean, there are a few psychological reasons.
Okay.
Sometimes it's notoriety they want to be part of.
Oh, they just want to be, like,
a big case.
Involved.
Yeah, insert themselves into the story.
Wow.
Other times, it could be an actual delusion.
Oh, wow.
Where they actually believe.
I believe they did it.
They did it, even if they don't have any memory of it.
That's wild.
It really does complicate things for investigators.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of complicating things, we can't forget about the medical knowledge angle.
Right.
The precision of those cuts, the lack of blood at the scene. I mean, it really makes you think that someone with surgical skills was involved.
It does. And the LAPD, they really did go down that road.
Okay.
They looked into doctors, surgeons.
Anyone who could have?
Yeah, anyone who might have had that kind of expertise.
Wow.
But it seems like that was another dead end.
It's so frustrating because it feels like such a
strong lead.
A strong lead, right? So let's talk suspects.
Okay, yeah.
I mean, the article mentions quite a few.
It does.
But the one that always kind of jumps out to me is...
Dr. George Hodel?
Dr. George Hodel, yeah.
The Los Angeles physician.
Yeah, and his own son became convinced that he was the killer.
He was convinced his father was the Black Dahlia killer.
And even wrote a book about it.
Wrote a whole book about it.
But they mention in the article a lot of people are skeptical.
Very skeptical.
Of his claims.
And it makes sense. I mean, it's a compelling story.
It is.
But a lot of the evidence is, well, it's circumstantial.
And a lot of interpretation.
Yeah.
Right?
I mean, there's no smoking gun, so to speak.
So we have a suspect with a possible motive.
Right.
The potential knowledge, but no hard evidence.
It's maddening.
It's maddening. It drives you crazy.
It really does.
What about Leslie Dillon?
Oh, yeah, Leslie Dillon.
He features pretty prominently in the article.
He's an interesting character.
Yeah.
I mean, he was a bellhop.
Okay.
Had some contact with Elizabeth Short.
Okay.
But he knew certain details about the case.
Oh, really?
That hadn't been released publicly.
So that makes him a person of interest immediately.
Oh, immediately.
Yeah.
And he was even arrested.
Oh, wow.
But ultimately cleared. Just lack of evidence.
Did they go into more detail about what those details were?
Not really.
Or why he might have known them?
I mean, he claimed he overheard a conversation.
Okay.
At the hotel where he worked.
All right.
But, they can never verify that.
It's like one of those things that's like right there.
It's a loose thread.
Yeah.
But you can't pull on it.
And then there's the whole Hollywood connection.
Right, the idea that her murder was somehow tied into...
Yeah, all the
the darker side.
Darker side of the entertainment industry.
Yeah, the underbelly.
Right, like maybe she crossed the wrong person.
Knew something she shouldn't have.
Or just got caught up in the wrong crowd.
Right, got swept up in it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That theory, it just seems to have staying power.
It does. I mean, it plays into this whole idea of Hollywood as this dream factory.
But also...
where dreams become nightmares.
Yeah, exactly.
But again, like a lot of the theories, there's just no real evidence.
Okay, so before we wrap up, we have to talk about the botched abortion theory.
Oh yeah, that's a tough one.
It is. So the article mentions, the speculation that she may have died during an illegal abortion.
Right.
I mean, given the time period.
Right, the social context.
Yeah.
The stigma.
Makes you wonder.
And of course, it was illegal.
Yeah.
In a lot of places.
So, but is there any evidence
to support that? It's really heavily debated. I mean, there's no proof that she was actually pregnant.
Okay.
And some experts argue that the way her body was, the injuries don't really match up.
With a botched abortion?
Yeah.
So another dead end.
It seems like it.
This case is just one roadblock after another.
It really is.
You mentioned earlier how all the media attention might have hurt the investigation, but it's made this case like a
phenomenon.
Yeah, a true crime phenomenon.
That's classic.
It's inspired, books and movies.
Oh, yeah.
TV shows.
Countless works.
And even video games.
Everything.
I mean, James Ellroy's novel, The Black Dahlia.
Oh, yeah.
It's probably the most
the most well-known.
Well-known example. Have you read it?
Yeah, I have. It's, obviously fictionalized.
Right.
But it really does a good job of capturing that post-war Los Angeles atmosphere, that sort of underlying...
The noir.
Yeah.
That paranoia and dread, yeah.
I think that's one of the things that really draws people to this case.
The setting, the time.
The setting, the time.
Yeah, it just feels very noir.
Yeah.
And then you have Elizabeth Short herself.
Right.
I mean, she's become this tragic icon.
Yeah, symbol.
A symbol, yeah, of lost innocence.
Yeah.
This young woman with dreams who was, so brutally murdered.
And whose killer was never caught.
It's a story that it speaks to our deepest fears, and our fascination with the unknown.
Yeah, and the article ends on that note.
It does.
Of Elizabeth Short as a symbol.
It's powerful.
They say that, despite the brutality and all the theories swirling around it, it's her story that really sticks with you.
Yeah.
It's this almost perfect example of Hollywood ambition.
Right.
But then the dark side that can be lurking beneath the surface. Yeah, and I think the fact that it's never been solved,
right,
just adds to that whole...
To the mystery.
The mystery and the unease.
Like an unanswered question.
Yeah, a loose thread.
Just hanging out there.
That continues to haunt us.
And it almost feels like the fact that we don't know makes the story that much more powerful.
Maybe it does. It lets us kind of put our own fears and anxieties onto it.
Oh, interesting.
Like we all become these armchair detectives
trying
to fill in the blanks, looking for answers that might not even be there.
So looking back at everything we've talked about, what are the big takeaways from this deep dive into the Black Dahlia case?
Well, I mean, I think, first of all, it's just a brutal reminder of what humans are capable of.
Yeah, the violence was just...
horrific.
It's awful.
And the fact that it happened at a place that we associate with, glamour and dreams makes it even more disturbing.
And then the investigation itself.
Right.
Just roadblock after roadblock.
Media frenzy, false confessions, dead ends.
Yeah, it really shows you how hard it can be to solve a crime.
Oh, yeah. Especially one that captures the public imagination like this one did.
But I think for me, the biggest takeaway is the lasting power of an unsolved mystery.
Absolutely. I mean, the Black Dahlia, it fascinates us because it represents something unfinished, something we don't know, and that allows us to,
let our imaginations go wild.
Exactly, and explore those dark parts of human nature.
Yeah, and it's a reminder that sometimes, despite our best efforts, some secrets they just stay hidden.
They do.
And that can be a really unsettling thought.
It is, but it's also a testament to the power of a good story.
Yeah.
I mean, the Black Dahlia case, it's become part of American folklore. It's a cautionary tale.
Passed down through the generations.
Exactly, and as long as the mystery's there, the stories will keep coming.
Well, this has been an incredible deep dive. Thank you so much for walking us through
of course.
this complex and often very disturbing case. I have to say, it's left me with a lot to think about.
I think, with any good mystery, it's the questions that we're left with.
Yeah.
Who was the killer? What was their motive?
Why?
And what does it say about us that we're still so captivated by it?
All these years later,
Yeah.
those are questions that I think we'll be
thinking about for a while.
Yeah. And on that note, we're going to wrap up our deep dive into the Black Dahlia murder. Thank you for sharing this article with us and for joining us on this journey into one of America's most enduring mysteries. Until next time.